All right, so welcome. My name is Ross Yelsey. I work here in the Office of Admission and Financial Aid at Columbia Journalism School. I'd like to welcome you to the session, as I mentioned, about the documentary specialization within our Master of Science program. This is a really great time to come to a conversation like this because there's still about a month and a half to get an application together for any Columbia Journalism School program you might be interested in. I know a lot of you might be looking at the different options available for the different programs, learning more, getting more information as you prepare an application. So we're really happy to have a conversation now with faculty and alumni to give you a better sense on what the opportunities would be in each of our programs, whether it's the MS, the documentary program, investigative, our MA programs. And we're always happy to have conversations on our side and the admissions side too. So please reach out to us anytime at apply.journalism@columbia.edu if you have questions about, nitty-gritty admissions questions, questions about the process. Always happy to take those at that point. So December 15th, please remember that's the deadline though to get your application in. And this year, as in last year, we're really happy to say that the application fee is not existent, so that you can apply with no financial kind of money down at all. So please, consider this program without having to feel like you have to put a monetary kind of investment in that. Although we know it takes time and effort to put an application together. For the documentary program, though, I'm really happy to have the director of the program, Robe Imbriano, professor here at Columbia Journalism School, with us, and two a recent alumni of the program, Iona Horton and Nikki Sitch, who are joining us. Nikki all the way from Australia. So again, thank you, Nikki, for staying up very, very late into the morning to talk to everybody today. And so we'll go over some key aspects of the program, and then I know some of you who are attending the session have some questions, so we'll have a chance for you to ask those a little later in the webinar. So we'll go over the main things and then leave some time for Q&A in the last, say, 10 minutes or so of the chat. But I thought I'd start with Robe. Can you tell us a little bit about your own background in journalism and documentary filmmaking, some of the work you've done, and what drew you to this particular medium within journalism?
Sure. Hey, everybody. Very good to see you guys. Nikki, thank you for being here. I think it's 3 a.m. Where you are. Really appreciate the commitment or the insanity. So I started in news, broadcast news, started ABC many, many years ago. And journalism, television journalism in particular, attracted me because I always enjoyed telling visual stories. Even though I considered myself a writer, I really enjoyed going out and connecting with people and having them say things in their own words directly to viewers, as opposed to me filtering things or getting quotes wrong and such. So for me, it was really important to jump into some kind of visual storytelling. I spent years at ABC and actually left ABC a few times. One time to go to Columbia to SEPA, and then went back to ABC. I did a lot of work there, doing daily news, overnight news, but I was part of a new show. This was back in the 90s where I had the opportunity to take small cameras, go out and teach people from underserved communities how to tell their stories, stay with them, work with them in the edit room to put first person pieces on in prime time. And that was really my intro to documentary filmmaking. And that was it for me. You could not get me to go back to traditional news, even though I love magazine shows and I love longer form news broadcasts that are substantive and done well. The freedom to tell stories in the way that they need to be told, in the way that the story demands to be told, to hear directly from people in long form. That was just a dream for me. And I've been doing it ever since, and doing it with great joy, even though sometimes production can be the very opposite of joy. It is the thing that keeps you going through the hard times.
Great. I know you just had a recent project published on the New Yorker last week, Criminal. Can you just mention what that project was about?
Yeah, so one complaint that I have with documentary is that we've been struggling to find ways to talk about systems. We talk a lot about individuals and tell stories about individuals. This is about the cash bail system and county jails in America, focused on Houston's Harris County Jail. I don't know if you've had a chance to see it or not. It's up on the New Yorker site and also on their YouTube channel. It's a 20-minute animated musical documentary short about cash bail in Houston. And the other thing that, I really want to emphasize is that, I don't put a limit or restrictions on form. I think, it's really important to tell stories the way that the story wants to be told and the way that you can author it. So if you've got a really interesting idea and we can execute it in the time that you're here, that's what I want you to do.
Very cool. Before I talk to our alums, I wrote one more question just in terms of the school. We have a Master of Science program. It's the largest program. It has a lot of different areas of journalism that are covered in it, including, visual journalism. Why do you think it's important that our school offers this specialized program for this type of journalism? Why is it, its own kind of, curriculum, and why does it take a bit longer, one more semester than the traditional MS program would take?
So there are other documentary programs, film schools offer documentary. I think it's actually really important to get the basics of journalism down first, so that you know how to report, so that you know how to find people and you know how to tell factual and truthful stories really well. Then we lean into the inventiveness and we lean into production. So, the first block of the year is really spent on learning how to report and finding those stories, finding characters, discerning what is a story, what is not a story, what kind of person or character will carry your film. And then in the spring, we lean more into production so that you really get the basics of production. And by the end of spring, and I think Iona and Nikki can talk to this, everyone's shooting has improved, everyone's editing has improved, and you're ready to spend the summer really drilling down into your film. And so those three stages, I think, are absolutely vital. But it really does start with reporting. Oh my God, I think I just inadvertently almost said the motto of the school, reporting begins here. Is that, yeah.
You're right.
It really does start with reporting. It really does start with knowing how to find stories and people and follow up and do all of those things that you have to do if you're going to be a successful documentarian. But by the end of this, you will make a film and not just like a student film. The expectation is that you're going to make a film that's going to go to festivals and do well. And I think we have two students on here, former students, alums, excuse me, who've done exactly that. And the whole goal is to throw you out of this place ready to go make films.
Mhm. Great. So that's a great moment to turn it over to Iona and Nikki. Maybe Iona or Nikki will go in that order. Can you tell us what you were doing before you came to Columbia, and why was it the documentary specialization that you wanted to apply to? What was your kind of motivation for wanting to learn this particular type of, storytelling?
Yeah, thanks, Ross and Robe, and hi everyone. Great to see you. I'm a geologist by training, and I'd been working as an environmental consultant for nearly 10 years. But documentary film had always been a dream, working in a more creative field, but still hopefully having impact in, yeah, that's my kind of niche, like nature, environment, natural history. And obviously, you can might tell from the accent, I'm from the UK, so we've got a really rich history of that with BBC and David Attenborough and so on. So I I moved to New York with my company, and that's when I found out about the Columbia program. And it's just 1 year, so it's pretty intense, but it means you're not taking too long out of work and a career and being paid. So I decided to go for it and just really hoped that the education I would get, the skills that I would learn, and also the network that I would become a part of would help springboard me into this new career.
Mhm. Nikki, how about you?
Yeah, so I was working in media before I came to Columbia. I was doing podcast producing for around 4 years. And I was producing a lot of entertainment and chat formats. And I began to realize that the sort of audio documentaries and the work I wanted to do, I didn't necessarily have the sort of journalistic rigor um, to be eligible for them within my company. And so I was thinking about a journalism degree. I also, like Iona, had a long-standing sort of passion and interest in documentaries and visual storytelling. Video podcasting was coming in a big way. So I was doing more work sort of within Adobe Premiere and realizing the value of that. And I mean, similar to what Robe said, like the attraction to the documentary program at Columbia is that it is embedded within the journalism school. There's a couple of really good doc programs in Australia, but they're standalone. And so you don't have that wider experience. And yeah, I guess the foundation of reporting and journalism informing your work within the documentary program, which I found super valuable.
Yeah, and it's a question that came to mind for both of you too. As Robe was talking about how this is really hands-on training. What was it like coming into a program like this, probably from a more traditional undergraduate experience, which most people are probably coming from too, where you have tests, reading lists, syllabus. What's it like to be in a hands-on program that, Columbia offers?
It's fantastic. I mean, it's everything you want out of a master's. I think you want to be hands-on at this stage, and it's a hands-on sort of profession. So the ability to learn how to shoot, to edit, and for all of that to be kind of supervised and guided by some of the best in the industry is kind of a dream, I think. I don't know what you think, Iona.
Yeah, I think for me it was really important that I would have practical skills. And I came in not being able to make a film, and now I can. And that's working a camera, that's using the editing software, that's understanding the process now in post-production, working with colorists and sound mixers and so on. And I really didn't just want to study more. I think one can teach oneself a lot of things these days. Like you can read about almost anything and you can go on LinkedIn Learning and so on, but you're not going to have someone fiddling around showing you the different camera settings. We have access to the Columbia Journalism School's full equipment room and can try out all kinds of different stuff that would normally cost a lot of money to rent out, but it's included within the tuition and so on. And that was really valuable.
Great. And so I think we'll go take a look at the curriculum. Roby already kind of gave a bit of an overview in terms of how the program is structured, in terms of giving you those essential skills and reporting to start with, and then building the documentary skills. But a lot of people always ask kind of what does it look like to be here for the 12 months? So I'm going to share my screen for a minute here, and we'll just clear all this stuff off and take a look together at the screen here, where we get a sense of what the 12 months curriculum looks like. And I don't think we'll go class by class because this could take hours to do. There's so many things to talk about. But overall, maybe Rob, could you just give a bit of an overview of kind of what the structure of the program is in terms of kind of developing the skills over the 3 semesters?
Yeah, so the way I kind of break it down is in the fall you find your story, in the spring you find your feet, and in the summer you find your film.
Mhm.
And the whole idea is that we really want you to learn how to report. We want you to learn how to find stories. We want you to learn how to find people in reporting. There's also image and sound where you start to really get the basics of how to use a camera, how to frame things, how to record audio. And those two classes, we try to coordinate them. It's a documentary curriculum, but some of this is also the rest of the school is taking reporting. The rest of the school is taking written word. So you'll be thrown in some cases with some other students from other specializations or from the MS population, but you will also be focusing on the things that will make your film better by the end of the summer. Investigative techniques, that's actually I'm going to audit that class next year. It's a terrific class because it gives you all kinds of ways, vehicles, tricks to find people and to find stories far beyond the Google. Law and ethics teaches you about the law, teaches you about legal obstacles that you may have to overcome to do your work in your film, and ethics. Obviously, we discuss ethics everywhere and in every class, but there is a particular focus on it in the fall. Journalism Now is a really interesting uh, collective of different things that you'll encounter as journalism. We bring a lot of people into the school. My center, I also run a center for civil and human rights. Next week, we're doing a forum with Maria Ressa, the Nobel Prize winner, asking the question, is it a journalist's job to defend democracy? All kinds of things that come up during Journalism Now that are actually just really interesting, and one of the reasons why you come to Columbia, because we're in New York, because we are the epicenter of a lot of the focus on journalism, due to Columbia, due to our dean, due to the faculty, and the fact that we are in New York. Um, and one other thing about what we're doing next week, because of everyone's schedule, they couldn't make it Tuesday night. So the documentary Specialization is going to pre-tape the show Monday afternoon and put it all together for Tuesday night. So boom, instant work and instant practice. The documentary seminar is 15 weeks in the spring. And by then, you will have proposed your doc. You will have made a proof of concept about your doc. There's a panel of people who evaluates the proposals, and we choose a half. So you'll be working in teams of two to do your film. But during the spring, we bring in people from every walk of life that it takes to get a film made and distributed. So we don't only bring in editors and directors, but we bring in DPs, we bring in composers, we bring in production types who deal with budgets, so you learn all of that. Bring in festival directors who curate. We keep an eye on the market and keep an eye on the things that you need to know so that when you leave here, you can be successful right away and get your own films out right away. And then the summer, you're really focused with your partner. You work in teams of two to do your film. We bring in advisors in March so that you'll have an advisor from the industry, and Nikki and Iona can tell you a little bit more about all that. They'll work with you throughout the process until the end of your film as sort of an executive producer. And then you finish your film a couple of days before you graduate. And then you fine tune it actually the following fall. And then in December, traditionally, we have what we call Doc Fest, which is where it's really my favorite part of my favorite day of the year, where everyone shows their films to the community. You invite friends and family and people who've been in your film, and everyone just gets to see it publicly. You get to sit up on the stage, talk about your film, because you have to practice how you talk about your work. That's part of the job. And it's just a wonderful culmination of the work that you've done.
Yeah, I've been to many of those myself. It's always, yeah, a highlight, I think, for the whole community to go to those. So looking forward to the new one coming up in December where we'll see Iona and Nikki's films. But going back to Iona and Nikki, as you look at this kind of year that you spent here, were there any particular projects or classes that really stand out in terms of, things that really were really important kind of in your formation as documentary filmmakers?
I can start. I think, I mean, obviously, we're on the documentary specialization, so we're already focusing on video, learning editing from the beginning, which was an aspect of picking the specialization I really valued. I think that if you're on the general, if you don't go in with a really clear idea of your specialization, you can end up doing a little bit of everything and kind of come out not really an expert in anything. And I loved our video classes and how, I mean, I chose to work on stories that actually worked across a lot of my classes, which I found a really excellent way to manage the workload because the fall semester is really intense. So I actually found the story that ended up being my thesis doc in reporting right at the start of the year. I didn't know that it would turn into my thesis doc at that time, but as I continued researching and dug deeper and got to know my one of my main characters and then his whole world and kind of branched out from there, it became obvious that this was what I should be pursuing. And I can't recommend that highly enough if you get lucky and can sort of do it that way. Nikki and I actually took the same written word class in the fall, which was another highlight for me. It was feature writing, and we the assignment is to pick a place, and then you go back and you report and you observe on that place. And it was very complementary to documentary film because of how observational it was. And even in our class, we ended up watching some fiction films and applying some of the skills of how to build out a really effective scene and draw someone in your writing. But it's a very similar skill set to think about when you're trying to do it in video as well. So yeah, Nikki, over to you.
I mean, I echo everything Iona said. She got particularly lucky with finding a story and reporting that carried through, and that doesn't happen for everyone. Certainly didn't for me. But even with those other classes that you take, reporting, for me, I wanted to take a couple of long form written subjects. So I took feature writing, and I took another subject called the journalism of ideas. And obviously, that's not a visual. Um, it's not centered on sort of visual storytelling, but it really helped me think about narrative structure, the way we tell a story, and that all kind of informed what I took back to documentary, and then even the process of reporting on other things and thinking about other things. I definitely use sort of reporting from those subjects for assignments within the documentary project, which was fantastic. And oh, the other thing I was going to say is that something that the doc program does really well is that you sort of build up to your thesis film with a series of fun.
I think we lost your audio there. Oh, seems to have lost the audio, Nikki. But okay, so we'll maybe come back to you if you get that.
I mean, I don't know exactly what Nikki was going to say, but I might be able to. Yeah, the doc class had like building blocks, were built around different exercises where we made like short films that were both teaching us the skills or potentially even would end up as scenes in the final documentary. And that was a really clever connected way to both learn what we needed to learn to be able to do it, but also actually use the work to then build our film later. And um, now, two of the clips that I filmed as those exercises whilst we were learning throughout the year are some of the clips that I'm sending out as examples of my work separate to my doc for job applications and other like portfolio elements that employers are asking for, and that was really valuable. It's wonderful to come out with two like micro docs plus a longer short doc to really show some of your versatility and more examples of work that you've actually made. You've got real clips that can show what you can do.
Mhm. Great. And I know we've been kind of alluding to this master's project throughout this conversation about, the development of that, and also, I know you said, of course, you came across this story in your reporting. Can you tell everyone a bit about what your project was about and what it was like the process of actually telling the story here?
Sure. So my film ended up being it's about an endangered tree species that's critical to classical music. And if it's lost, the sound that people have come to love of an orchestra for the last 250 years will also be lost. And I came to it through my boyfriend, who was a professional violinist and also has a violin shop. And when I was still an environmental consultant, I happened to be working from home in his violin shop when a Brazilian bow salesman came in and started trying to sell him bows and explaining the problem they'd been having sourcing and exporting this wood, which only grows in Brazil. And so then 6 months later, when I got onto the program and I needed stories for a reporting class, I was like, you know what, I'm going to get back in touch with that bow maker and see what's going on there. And I just went down the rabbit hole. It just opened up this whole world for me. And then I started I don't know how experienced any of you are, but one thing I didn't realize was that you do cast in documentary. They're obviously not actors, but you need people who are going to be good on camera, who are eloquent, who can tell your story. And that's one of the things that's really hard to find because if you find it, in my opinion, you're going to make a good film.
Mhm.
And if you don't find it, you're going to make it dud, or it's going to be much more of a challenge. And so I ended up talking to many more and then filming with a few less, but still more, and then ultimately filming much more. We kind of worked at like a triangle like that, or almost like a funnel where you're like meeting lots of people, trying to figure out who will make your story, tell your story, and who's good on camera and so on. And then will they actually let you follow them around? Will they actually let you film them and spend the time that you need? Because we're in the business of predicting the future, and that's almost impossible. And that was one of the challenges I really found is like, yeah, there are elements of the past that are informing the story you want to tell, but we're living in the present, we're filming in the present, and we're trying to film out what's going to happen next that we'll want to capture and tell the rest of the story. And I think there's a question later about that, which we can expand more on. But yeah, so that's how. So I started meeting a lot of violin and bow makers, and then a lot of musicians, and then through them figuring out like trying to get in touch with their supply chains and getting back to the source of the wood in Brazil and understanding more about how Brazilians felt about it and how Brazilian bow makers were being affected by it, and also Brazilian farmers and foresters and people working in the environment agency of the government and managing the national park that has the largest population of the remaining trees and so on. And yeah, I then was working with one version of the film where I went to Brazil and could get footage in Brazil with some of these Brazilian players, and then a version of the film where I didn't get funding and was just going to be working with like archival material or trying to make it work in a different way. And then you'll hear more about if you do the program, or I don't know if Ross or Rob are going to talk about it, but there are Pulitzer Center grants that can help you make your film. And I applied and was lucky enough to get one. I think actually Nikki and her partner Claudia also got one for their film. So there are a few that sort of go round. There's one specifically for our class, which Nikki and Claudia were awarded, and then there's one for the wider pool, which a lot of people in the school go for, and so on. And that's the one that Louisa and I ended up getting, and that meant we got the money to go to Brazil, so I could include those elements in the film, which was totally fantastic. And that's another plus of having the summer term because you don't have classes. So if you need to do more traveling for the filming, you can. Whereas I would have missed classes and I don't know how okay it would have been. And yeah, so yeah, I that's some of my how I got my story and my process.
Great,
Yeah,
thank you.
let me just say, Nikki, before you jump in the previous year, we had a team go to Tbilisi, Georgia. Same deal. Got a grant to go there for their story. So, we try to support the work, and we don't try to limit it. Obviously, there are limitations about what you can accomplish in an academic year, and we have a sense of what's possible. But we want to live in the world of possibilities. So if there's a realistic chance that you can actually go abroad to do some of your film, then we'll try to get that done.
Great. And so we'll see if Nikki, if you're able to convey your thoughts
Can
there.
you hear me?
Yes, yes, great. Yes, so
Yes.
far so good.
Okay, fab. Yeah, so I guess I represent the 50% of the class who ended up working on my partner's film concept rather than my own. And I came to the project sort of via sort of mutual interest in the sort of reporting she was doing in order to establish her subject. So we were both really interested in aging and reporting on aging well and super ages so our film was about a woman who was navigating a terminal diagnosis um, via learning to dance and preparing for a final dance performance. Um, I hope, Robe, that log line was okay. And um, yeah, so I think one really valuable piece of advice that our investigative techniques professor, who was also a doc maker, gave me that I've kind of taken heed of as I progressed through joining somebody else's film, making it my own film, was that that's a very valuable skill in and of itself, even if your concept doesn't get picked, to jump on board someone else's vision and make it your own, and understand what you can bring to realize their sort of initial concept and iterate upon it is, yeah, I think something you'll probably have to do with throughout your career. And I really enjoyed the process. I didn't think it detracted from the program at all. And yeah.
Cool. Maybe Nikki and Iona, something you just brought up, you have these partners, Louisa and Claudia. What's it like, doing the collaborative work that goes into documentary filmmaking? What was that process, developing, these working relationships with your fellow students here?
Really great and really necessary. I mean, it's, I love to brainstorm with people and talk through ideas, and so having a partner to do that with was fantastic. Louisa and I actually were kind of partners from the beginning. Like, these are the exercises that we discussed. We happened, you don't have to do it this way, but it's just kind of how the chips fell. We were working together from the beginning, so we'd already worked out quite a nice, you kind of get to a place with your partner where you're reading each other's minds. So, because when you're filming, you have to be silent, and unless it's an interview, and then you're asking questions. But yeah, the noise that you're making really matters, and basically, you don't want to make any. So then, if each of you are trying to cover something, you're having to kind of like make eyes at each other and hand signals, and you just work out. But it's great. I mean, you agree things in advance as well, but it's great that you work out this like silent language together. And I mean, also there can be a lot of kit depending on what shoot you're about to go and do, and then it's necessary to have two people just to carry it. And it's just so helpful, just talking through things, running it by someone. And as Nikki says, it's essential. It's very unlikely that you will be working on your own going forward. You're going to be part of a team, or at the very least a partnership. And so learning how that works also in a very creative space, where emotions and tastes are involved and have to be navigated and discussed and agreed and compromised on. These are all very useful skills to be practicing with you and your partner, before you're then doing it in a professional environment.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't think I can add to that. That's a perfect response, Iona.
Cool. So maybe a question we alluded to too. Oh, Rob, did you have something you wanted to
Yeah,
get?
I just want to say filmmaking is the most collaborative medium. It just is. And so the whole idea is that part of what you're actually going to learn, because it is a professional practice, is how to collaborate. So deadlines, collaboration, these are things that, might seem like, they can come later. You can learn them as professionals, but the whole idea is that we want to kick you out of here, ready to be a professional, like fully ready to be a professional, and collaborating is absolutely essential to filmmaking. So these guys did it particularly well.
Very cool. And a question that we alluded to about kind of thinking of what actually would make for a good documentary. I know, Iona and Nikki, you mentioned taking like a feature writing class, writing classes, and getting to do stories in that format. But what did you learn about kind of what would make for a good documentary project as opposed to something that might be a really good written story or in a different format, a good story? But how did you learn what really would work for documentary?
Well, as Iona said before, I think character is fundamental. Um, and so that was a main kind of consideration when we were looking at casting and the sort of film that we wanted to create. I think most of the films that come out of this program, with the exception of one this year, are kind of human interest stories. In terms of documentary, you're looking for something with visual interest and a visual element. So, in my particular instance, we were filming dance, which by its very nature is sort of visually interesting. It's a performance. And so, we were focused on sort of these beautiful shots of which is quite difficult to achieve, we found out in the end, sort of dance sequences, um and sort of creating visual metaphor and um that sort of thing. So that's just in the instance of my film what we thought made it visually interesting, and I'll hand it over to Iona, who's disappeared.
Mhm. Oh, we're back, I think.
No, no, sorry. I'm still here. Yeah, I wanted to, I mean, yes, a big difference is that it's visual. So ideally you want something, well, I wanted something beautiful. And I wanted things that would also allow viewers to see into a world. It's a window into a world that other people might not necessarily ever get to see or rarely get to see. And when I first, I mentioned it's sort of my boyfriend's world, but I'm not a violinist. I'd never, yeah, seen someone carving a bow or an instrument. And when I entered Christoph's workshop, I just felt like I'd gone back in time. And it's stunning. And it was just this little haven of an ancient craft and tradition in the heart of Manhattan. And I just knew that it had to be on camera. And yeah, as Nikki says, character as well. Christoph is also so charismatic and funny. So capturing his little quips and comments were really fun. Was really fun. Obviously, it is audio as well. And so the other, the half of my film that was classical music, I knew I had a built-in soundtrack basically. But I mean, it sounds like I'm just talking about my film, but I think that these are things that I would look for anyway. Something that's beautiful, something that maybe has built-in sound as well. You want things where there's action and process that you can follow. So, you know, making a bow from start to finish was something that I imagined could be a sequence. A classical music concert and someone's preparation for the performance. I mean, like Nikki said, theirs was a dance performance. I mean, I mentioned we're in the business of predicting the future. Part of what helps you do that is if you know that there's a clear story arc where your characters, or even maybe in Robes, where he was talking about his dark criminal, which is like talking about a system. You If you know that there's going to be some kind of event still that you can build up to and then climax with and come down from. And mine, I mean, it's in the end we're not filming it because we graduated before, but there's a UN meeting that's going to determine whether or not this wood is banned in November. So there was built in tension where everyone is, and things like performances or other, meetings, maybe a court case or something like that, are also helpful in helping you predict that future and know that there's going to be action and tension and activity with your characters building up to. That's one way you can really sort of help yourself out.
Great. And I'm putting the link to the DocFest in the chat here, which will eventually have the DocFest coming up and the film descriptions for all of you for Nikki and Iona's films. And Rob, could mention just what some of the other students in the cohort worked on this particular year, when people will find this information a little later, but in terms of some of the subjects people dived into.
Yeah, we tend to focus on character-driven stories, um, because especially for a first film, it's really important to be able to find somebody who can really carry the film for you. But if you go to the New Yorker, you go to the New York Times, you go to Atlantic, or ProPublica, a lot of these stories are character-driven, and that's what you'll find, particularly in the short film format. Um, you know, it's important to find a character who can really carry your story, but who can also reveal a larger truth about society. Iona's film is wonderful, and it's absolutely about music, but it's also absolutely about the environment. Nikki's film, totally entertaining and just an unforgettable character who has terminal cancer but finds joy at the end of her life in a dance troupe that was designed to really combat loneliness among seniors. We had a story about an elderly couple who had a grown autistic son, and they were worried about what he was going to do, when they're gone, and there just aren't many services for people who are like that. And we had a K-pop film that was hung on a dance competition. And you learn a little bit about the underbelly of something that is supposed to be so neat and tidy and beautiful. But you learn the price of that's paid, around making beauty, in particular, the heightened value of that competition. And then we had one film, I think Nikki alluded to it, that was not character driven at all, that was much more experimental. Turns out New York City has built a jail on the same site of land since 1838. And this became a film about designing spaces that lock people up. And how do you design that? What are your intentions? And what are the consequences? And it was, like I said, pretty experimental, but we felt like with some support, uh, the students involved had the chops to pull it off, and they did. They really did. It's a full slate, full range of films. I really try not to prescribe what you're going to do. I want you to come here. I want you to learn how to be a journalist, but then I want you to find your voice as a filmmaker, what motivates you. Because again, it is full of challenges. And I tell everyone, everyone who has worked with me, everyone who has studied with me, knows the phrase Plan J. It is never the first thing you try. It's rarely the second thing you try. It's usually Plan J that works out. You have to be nimble and you have to adjust and you have to be collaborative and your partner has to adjust and you have to respond to things because things come up in production all the time. But if you can do that, you can transcend all of it and end up with a wonderful film. And that really is the goal here, to have you do a wonderful film, but also before you do that, and I haven't mentioned it, these guys mentioned it, you do a 10-minute segment that is unrelated to your film so we can see you make a film start to finish. We can figure out sort of where your strengths are and what needs a little adjustment, but also so that when you leave here, you have more than just the short film to show for it. You have different clips that show a wide range of your versatility, because you're going to apply to different places for work, and we want to make sure that you have that range of material that supports your application.
Great. So I know a lot of you attending may have some questions. I've opened up the chat. Please put any questions you'd like to maybe pose to our discussants, to me, Ross, the host, and then I will be able to ask the ones that are pertinent to the conversation about the program. So please put those there. While we wait for that, I know Iona had to step away for a second. Maybe I'll ask Robe one of the important questions. I'm sure people are thinking, what do you look for in applicants to this program? If people are curious about this program, if they've done documentaries before, if they've never touched a camera, never done it, what do you look for generally in terms of a strong application application for people who want to do this type of work?
It's a really good question. There isn't one thing. I would say foundationally, we look for someone who has a commitment to visual storytelling. And sometimes that's evidenced by previous work, and then sometimes it's not. Sometimes it is someone who is just making an adjustment in their life, in their career, or who has done a lot of writing, but really wants to turn the page and lean into visual storytelling. If that is you, then we're looking a little bit more closely at the other work that you've done, to try to get a sense of, how good a writer you may be, or how good a storyteller you may be, or just sort of, what you're trying to gauge what your commitment may really be, before you get here. And if you already have experience in visual storytelling, show your clips. Be proud of your clips. Fly the clips. We want to see clips. We want to see, what it is that you've done. We want to know what you've done in those clips. So be precise. Let us know, did you shoot? Did you edit? Did you direct? Did you produce? What did you do? But I think for your application, what we're really trying to determine is, you know, are you committed to visual storytelling? Do you have, what it takes to make it through this program? Program is a sprint. Year sounds like it may be a lot to make a film, but you're doing an awful lot while you're making the film as well. So, get ready. The fall in particular is a challenge, before things kind of level out in the spring. And I don't want to sugarcoat it in any way, shape, or form. When I was at ABC, I would come in for this one particular show on Monday with a suitcase, not knowing where I was going. I'd get on a plane that day. I'd fly someplace, shoot a story for 2 days, come back to New York or DC, work all night to put that story on the air on Thursday. And by the end of that, you couldn't tell me anything. I knew exactly what I was doing. And this program has that same philosophy. You learn by doing.
Mhm. Great. And a question, I think we already talked a little bit about how the kind of partnerships come together for the docs, but someone who kind of wants to know a bit about how that actually is, timed out in terms of when do you have to determine who your partner is for the documentary project, and is it imposed, or is it something where you just organically find your kind of partner over the course of the program?
So, and Nikki and Iona can talk a little bit about their experience. We're changing it just a little bit. What you will do is you will submit your proposals and your proof of concepts in December. And you'll be notified by January about which films have been bought. And you have the opportunity to talk to your classmate and determine who your teammate is going to be, and what film you're going to work on. And then if for some reason, you haven't been able to find a partner or the right film, and this happened last spring, a film falls through. Then I will step in and try to figure out what the best match is, and move forward with either a separate film if your film falls through, or break up the teams and go to sort of the next best proposal that we got. Because out of 10 or 12 proposals, I would say more than half are actually doable, but we can only choose half. So usually in the films that we haven't chosen, there are usually one or two that are pretty good and ready to go.
Mhm. See a question here. Someone wanted to know more about kind of how the program helps people think about their careers in documentary, if that's what they're seeking to do in terms of learning more about the industry, contracts, the kind of the actual business of like getting documentaries funded, all of that.
Nikki and Iona, you want to take that one first?
Yeah, I'd say that's one of the major advantages of this program is that the exposure to the industry and people practicing within the industry is incredible. It's incredible. Particularly in the spring, every week, as Robe alluded to, we'd have somebody come in from a point in the production process. So whether that be pre-production all the way through to distribution, and festival curators come in and tell us, what they do within their square foot of the industry, and both, what their role entails, and in the case of festival curators and distribution, how can we best place ourselves to get our film out into the world? And yeah, so I just think that's a fantastic aspect of the program.
There's one other thing I should mention, which is that this year, Rainey Aronson, who is the executive producer of Frontline, has taken the role of editor at large for the program. I don't know if you're familiar with the program Frontline. It's been on PBS for decades. Rainey also won Oscar for Best Documentary Feature last year for 20 Days in Mariupol. And she comes in once a month to work with everybody. The idea is that we don't just give you the skills, we don't just give you the clips in the film to walk out with, but we also give you a network, so that when you walk out, you have a network. And out of the many speakers that we had come in last spring, I am herding them all now, and particularly at Iona's request, to make sure that they're all available to everyone, throughout, well, for the foreseeable future. And we have gotten a really robust response so far. People want to be available and accountable to you guys, because they really enjoy coming in and talking to students and finding fresh young talent.
And a
Could I
question.
just say one more thing? Sorry to interrupt, but we should also mention our supervisors were um, forerunners in the industry. In my particular case, I had Eric Johnson, who is director of docs at CNN, as my exec producer, and the exposure to them and their insights, to sit down with him in the edit suite and run through the film and understand the way he sees filmmaking, and the editing process was invaluable. So just a little note there.
Great. A question from someone curious about, maybe interested in this and as well as audio work, and whether you see crossover between people working in the audio space and documentary, or vice versa, in terms of using some of these skills in both types of formats.
Hmm. Nikki, Iona, did either of you take any of the audio classes?
I didn't
No,
because worked in audio, but Iona.
yeah, that's I wanted to actually, but it clashed with doc classes in the spring. I was gonna, yeah. But I was gonna say I think Nikki's probably best placed to answer this because you worked in audio and then moved into doc and a lot of overlap.
I mean, audio documentary is a huge genre, and it's the sort of work that I wanted to do within my previous role. And so there's that component. And then the second component is audio is so fundamental. Good audio is so fundamental to a good documentary. You've got nothing if you don't capture decent audio. And so learning how to record good audio and process audio is part of the curriculum in the doc program. So that's something you'll be exposed to. And then you also have the option of taking, if it doesn't clash, um, audio production subjects in the spring.
Great. And maybe just to close, a question about kind of how to make the most out of this experience for people who are going to apply, and hopefully those who will come to the school in the future. It's a short program, as we keep saying, and you're doing a lot in a very short amount of time, just a calendar year of creating full documentaries and all of that. Any kind of mindset, any kind of advice you would give in terms of how to kind of hit the ground running when you get here?
Nikki, Iona, you want to take that first?
Sure, I can start. First of all, I would say so on the doc program, you only get to choose two classes. You get to choose written word in the fall, which starts halfway through the fall, and then you get to choose your second like big class that takes you through the spring. And I would say, try like really do your research on those. Read all about what's on offer, and particularly who's talking. Sorry, teaching. Who's teaching, and who like the school organizes like this a sort of webinars where I mean I remember there was one, it was like a rolling webinar where like each professor that was going to teach each class for the spring semester gave a little, 10-minute intro to the class and what it was all going to be about, as well as being able to read a basic overview of their ethos and syllabus online. But I think I would also try to have a one-on-one. They hold office hours and are really open to meeting with students. And I would say if there are, let's say you're choosing between two or three classes, um, meet them, take advantage of that, because actually, whether you click with your professor is a really big thing, I think. If, this is a graduate program and it's very short and intense, and you want someone who you're going to gel with and who you're going to build a relationship with that then hopefully will last, possibly in some kind of mentorship capacity after the class is over. And if you're it's also very intense. So if you're just not gelling with the professor and the class is making you miserable, it's just going to color your whole year.
Mhm.
And the other thing is I would choose things that, I mean, you're all, I'm sure, able to evaluate and manage your own workloads, but it is a very short and intense year and program. And you're also trying to enjoy New York and make new friends and think about your career after the program. And so I would choose classes that complement the documentary classes and maybe are a little less intense, because it takes a lot to make a film. And you will want to be spending all of your time on your doc. Um, and believe me, it can happily take all of your time. So just be kind to yourself and pick classes that will put you in the best shape to do that, rather than be an additional sort of totally separate workload with maybe a very demanding teacher who doesn't really understand that your priorities lie elsewhere. And it will be a lot of unnecessary stress, because at the end of the day, you're doing this program for your reasons and you want to get the most out of it. And you need to have a clear head and some thinking time to report and be creative. And if you cram all of the time full of what might feel like busy work, then you're just going to be frustrated with yourself.
Thanks. Nikki, any thoughts?
Yeah, I totally agree with Iona. Research the professor and speak to students who've taken their class the previous year, and get a good insight into who they are and the sort of way they teach. And the other thing I would say is even in the sort of summer before you embark on the program, just start sort of reading books, consuming podcasts, thinking laterally about um, ideas for yeah, you don't need to come in with an idea of what your film's going to be, but think about what sort of area you'd like to concentrate on, and think laterally a little bit about how stories can be formed and pulled.
Yeah, and if I could just come in on that, like start maybe consuming a bit of New York news. Like you're based in the city, and if you can start to tap into, oh, there's an interesting community here, or there seems to be conflict around this in that area, then that's where you can start in your reporting class. And it's really nice to just feel like you've already got a bit of a feel for some of what's going on in the city, rather than just coming in totally cold, suddenly needing to generate stories and go places, and you're like, I don't even know what the Q train is.
Yeah.
Great advice. Rob, do you have a final bit of advice to close the conversation?
Yeah, that actually is great advice because we're going to throw you all over the city, which is a blast. Yeah, come in. you we want you to fall in love with the rigor. We want you to fall in love with the details of doing this work, because if you do that, you'll do it completely and you'll do it well. It is a heck of a year, and I don't think you will have gone through anything like it. The alumni network is strong because it's such a bonding experience, and it really is. I think for a lot of people, a really great kickstart to a beautiful way to live.
Great. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you to our alumni. Thank you for some of us who are staying up very, very late to join us. And thank you for your insights in the program. Thank you, Robe, for offering a great overview of what this experience could be like for people might come in and want to make amazing documentaries in a short amount of time. And thank you to everyone who attended. I know you're all over the world yourselves. Thank you for taking time in your day or evening to join us, too. And if you have questions about the application process, as I mentioned, December 15th is the deadline for applying for this program as well as our other programs this cycle. Please reach out to us anytime at apply.journalism@columbia.edu or join us for more events on the link sent out a few minutes ago, where you can join us for in-person and virtual events coming up in the next few weeks. So we hope to see you at more of those soon. Thank you again, everyone, for a great conversation, and take care. Have a good rest of your day, everybody.